everyone, and welcome back to this episode of Just Another Year Chicago. My name is Nick Brody. I'm joined alongside my co-host, London Beth, and today we are doing our initial reaction to the Bears' most recent press conference of Matt Nagy and Ryan Pace. Kind of just to start things off, this was not a public press conference, and all I have to say to that is clearly Nagy and Pace were given some of the questions they were going to be asked ahead of time. The PR team, most likely what happened, sat there, listened to their answers, and was like, Chicago will burn down if they hear the first two answers that are going to end up on Twitter. So it was not a public event. The Score was able to stream some of the answers and recordings. London was able to send that to me, and man, just what a disaster. I mean, it was just clearly something's going on at Hallis Hall. George McCaskey probably even was like, for the love of God, don't do this to me. So, London, I know that you got a few things to say on it, just not being public, but, just what the hell, right?
Yeah. And Nick, it's like I wake up in the morning. It was a tough day yesterday for just Chicago fans in general. The Bulls are sputtering, the Blackhawks are sputtering. Both Cubs and White Sox are favored and lost. It's just another year. Am I right?
Just another year.
And then I get up this morning, I see there's going to be a press conference. You and I, off air, we're kind of excited about it. We're like, hey, let's talk about it. It's not public. We have to watch it from the stream on the Score. Thank you to them. And just unbelievable. Like, I don't understand. And I'll get into it a little bit further on, when we talk about our two, main topics here. It makes me feel powerless as a Bears fan, and I just continue to not understand why they won't acknowledge what has been going on the past 5 years. It kills me.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think what's going on too is that the McCaskies, as owners of the Chicago Bears, they started caring about this team winning too late. Don't get me wrong, they have been all in lately on bringing in big name talent. Khalil Mack, when they brought him in, I was like, the McCaskies are waking up and smelling the coffee that they have a talented roster. And they have put the expectation on Ryan Pace and on Matt Nagy. And again, I will say this, is that Ryan Pace is not the problem. At the end of the day, they hired a bad seed in Matt Nagy. And that's where everything's going on. And the McCaskies are like, oh my God, I'm going to have to sell this team eventually. But the thing is, the Bears' value has tripled over the last decade. So, and they've owned the team for what? 5, 6 decades. I mean, forever. They've literally owned it forever. So they're not going to get rid of the team, but they started caring too late. Since 85, they were like, yeah, we'll ride this out for 20, 30 years. 20 years later, you get 2004, 2005, 2006. You get better defense. You start getting winning teams. Goes to shit. You get back to 2010, then that was just a dumpster fire too with Phil Emery. So, the McCaskies are so embarrassed of what they've put together and Ted Phillips too. Like hiring him, sure, you've had playoff appearances 2 of the last 3 years, but before that, nothing. You're 3-6 in the playoffs all time. Just a disaster. So just to start, just how this whole thing started off was unbelievable. Going into that, just to make things worse, and this is where I said Matt Nagy's the bad seed. He confirmed himself, said himself, this is how egotistical Matt Nagy is, that he will be calling the plays in 2021. After Matt Nagy gave up play calling, the Bears offense skyrocketed. David Montgomery blew up, became the David Montgomery that the league and fantasy owners knew at the end of the year. You put Mitch back in there. Mitch played better, but Mitch isn't coming back, which we're going to get to in a little bit on Ryan Pace's comments at quarterback. But what the hell? How did you not? That's probably what made Bears fans, they didn't want it to be public, knowing Matt Nagy was like, yeah, I'm going to call the plays again. You're bringing in everyone for Bill Lazor, not for you, Matt Nagy. I mean, I know what you're thinking. I know what you're thinking. It's just, what are you thinking, London?
Yeah, Nick, I know you're frustrated. Believe me. Like I said, I personally, and I know a lot of people in the Score talk to this, the best word I can come with is I feel powerless. I feel like, like I said, they just won't acknowledge just mediocrity. And so we continue to just see mediocrity. Listening to Ryan Pace, this morning, and I wrote just a bunch of notes down on his entire thing. This is what I came up with. Ryan Pace, first off, he finally thanked Trubisky for, what he did. And, that was great. They really didn't do any farewell thing, which I thought was a little bit sleazy. But he finally did thank him publicly in a press conference, which I thought was
They
nice.
didn't do
But
that
he
with
made it,
Cutler either. They didn't do that with
yeah,
Cutler either.
yeah, exactly. But he made it very clear throughout the whole, like, every question that got brought up about Mitch, he made it very clear that he's doing exactly like what happened with Jay Cutler when they moved on from him, Mike Glennon when they moved on from him, and so on and so forth. This repeated just cycle of just mediocrity at trying to find a QB is that they go, no more talking about the past. Andy Dalton is our guy. And I'm just sitting here going, okay, so again, we're just going to have mediocrity at the quarterback position.
And that's what he said about Glennon. That's exactly what he said about Glennon.
Same thing. It's just a rotation. So then, Ryan Pace on another question goes in and he kind of goes on this whole rambling thing about how he feels about Andy Dalton, right? And he feels he's an upgrade, which I agree. I do think Andy Dalton can be an upgrade. But this is what he says. He goes, and this is quoted: Ryan Pace on signing Andy Dalton. He fits with the offense, the leadership that he provides, his decision making. He's been to Pro Bowls. He's one of the most complete quarterbacks we evaluated in the free agency, and we're excited to have him. We feel like he's better. This is the thing that killed me. Is through every single question that he got asked about Andy Dalton, he repeated that whole thing. He repeated experience, leadership, decision making, fit for the offense, and winning in the league. And this is the worst part, is he said he's a fit for the offense 6 times. He used the word fit for the offense 6 times. And I'm like, man, after 4 or 5 years, are you just such a broken record that you have nothing better to say? Nick Foles, fit for the offense. Mike Glennon, fit for the offense. Trubisky, fit for the offense. It's like, are these guys actually a fit, or are you just trying to tell us and almost shove it down our throats that he's a fit so that 30% of the fan base that just, are just the Bears fans will just buy into it? Yeah. And that killed me. And that was when I heard fit for the offense for the 6th time after the 3rd question, I go, he's not going to give us anything. He's going to say the same exact stuff over again. And then he had the audacity to throw in this little tidbit about, it's an experienced QB room with Nick Foles and Andy Dalton. It's like, they have a winning mentality. Andy Dalton has a winning mentality. Well, doesn't Nick Foles? He won a Super Bowl. And then they go on to go, this is a great room for a young QB, which when we get into our mock draft, I know we're going to do a 2.0. That just opened the door for all the ideas of, Kellen Mond and all this other, all these other players. I know you're excited.
Kellen Mond, baby.
I know you're excited. And, and it opens up that door because they want to feel like, okay, we're going to do something, Bears fans. We're not going to leave you with Andy Dalton. And it kills me. It kills me that the quarterback room right now is Andy Dalton and Nick Foles, and they're trying to shove it. Ryan Pace himself is trying to shove it down our throats that he is the best fit for the offense, which gosh knows what that means. I don't even know what our offense is anymore.
No.
You know what I mean? I don't even know. I literally don't even know what our offensive identity is for the Chicago Bears. I didn't know it last year. Until the end of the year, we just ran the ball, so I guess I kind of understood it then. Don't know what it is going to be coming into the year. And then on top of it, one of the best questions I heard before I, stopped this Ryan Pace rant was, he goes, what do you think? What was different or what was wrong about why Nick Foles didn't work? He's a winner. He won a Super Bowl. He was a Super Bowl MVP. Honestly,
he won bigger games than Dalton.
Yeah, exactly. He was a good quarterback. He was having a great years in Philly. And he goes, well, it was a whole team issue. We had glaring problems in other places, and that's the reason why Nick Foles didn't succeed.
So let me go off that.
And I'm just stunned.
Well,
that's the answer you're going to give me. Okay.
But
sounds good, Ryan Pace.
But players that we have, no, you raise a very good point. Players that we have. Then I believe right after that question, they said, why were you so quiet in free agency? Obviously the cap was an issue. And they said, well, we already had the talent on this roster. Right after he said we had glaring issues. He said that he said the names of Mario Edwards Jr. Okay, fine. We need depth. Great depth guy, young. We got him on a good deal. Cairo Santos, absolutely. But then the third guy that he named was Jermaine whatever his name is.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Infidetti or whatever, yeah.
When
And then
he
he went
said
on to go
that,
with, like, Christian Jones, who's a returning guy who we could have probably got for cheap and kept him all these years. And
but
then he went
we
on
got
to,
him for super cheap. I don't.
and I said, yeah, the
Deals were
Trufant,
cheap.
I mean, like, Trufant we got for super cheap, but still, he goes on to list off these guys, and he's like, oh, they were great signs. Like, half of them were on our team last year.
And
So,
look
like,
how we did. You're gonna bring you're gonna pay a guy that did okay higher than some of these free agent big names. Like Kyle Long got less money. I know that you didn't want Kyle Long to come back, but Kyle Long was definitely a better player than him. Unbelievable. We paid him $7 million. And then on top of it, our starting quarterback, who is confirmed, Andy Dalton, is making less than our backup. The guy that we traded a 4th-round pick for, that is chewing up our cap. And sure, we restructured the deal. It would have been way worse. But the Broncos, the Jets, and the Eagles called about Nick Foles. Why was a trade not done? Like, where are the details? Why are those questions not being asked in press conferences? Why are they not being answered? And like you said, a complete broken record. Ryan Pace for 4 or 5 years should be a media guru, especially as the Chicago Bears GM. And he stinks. I like him as a GM. I like the things that he's done. But with the media, most things that he's done besides his head coach and besides his quarterback decisions and a few other ones, but he's a great depth builder, great special teams builder, great defense builder. But man, that guy sucks with the media. And emphasis on sucks.
Yeah, it's horrible. And like I said, it's just it makes me feel, and I'm just going to continue to repeat myself over and over. It makes me feel powerless as a Bears fan. I sit there and it's not like, an alpha beta thing. It's just like I sit there and I'm just like, okay, press conference. Awesome. Let's hear what we're going to say. The draft is coming up. We saw he was at Mac Jones. They had people watching Kellen. I mean, they were active in this stretch of pro days. They were at Ohio State. They were everywhere. They were very, very active. And like there's Jeff Dickerson for ESPN came out and said that like he talked with Kellen at Texas A&M, and he said the Bears and Kellen Mond have talked the most, and he feels a really good connection with them. So clearly they're gonna do something at the quarterback position, and they just fed us Andy Dalton stuff.
Yeah,
just fed us. Like, why didn't you talk about the Pro Bowls? The pro days? Why didn't you talk about the prospects?
So I wrote down so not nearly as many notes as London, but I wrote down, and this is the point I wanted to bring up. Is that the one thing Ryan Pace did say? He was asked, is there going to be an open competition entering training camp? No. Can that change during training camp? Absolutely. And is there room for a young quarterback to come in? Pace said yes. Yeah. So that is the only little drop that he gave, like, here you go. There is, like you're saying, didn't mean to cut off your rant, London.
You're good.
But by all means, they are active, but just absolutely pathetic in regards to the reassurance, the power. You feel power. You just want a little bit of reassurance just from, who's listening to Bears fans at this point, because the McCaskies aren't. Ryan Pace is probably the most, and he still isn't really. And you really think Matt Nagy gives 2 craps about what Bears fans think?
Yeah.
I was hoping someone would say, did you guys get extended? That was one thing I was hoping. Maybe it was, and they did not release that to the media. Get extended. Yeah.
That's a really good transition, Nick, into our second point in regards to Matt Nagy. Okay, so it came out on all over the place from the press thing. Bears head coach Matt Nagy will be assuming and taking the offensive play calls going forward. Right. Okay. Kind of big news. Bears fans, love to eat that up. We saw with Bill Lazor and all that kind of stuff. On Twitter, and I know you saw the same thing, and I know you're not a big Matt Nagy guy. I understand it. A lot of people were upset. They're like, what is going on? Why isn't it Bill Lazor? All this other kinds of stuff like that. I just want to put this, and I want to see, Nick, what you think after I kind of give you this little overview of why I think he's doing this and why I think it's good for the future of the Bears. Okay. And honestly, why I think it is pivotal for the future and especially our young core of like Darnell Mooney. right?
Talking to me?
Yeah, I'm talking to you.
Oh
The
God.
reason why I
Okay.
think it's really, really good for Matt Nagy and why they came out and why the PR team and stuff pushed out that he's going to be taking play calls is because this is his last year. He doesn't want to rely and have his career as a head coach of the Chicago Bears, the third largest market in the nation, on the hands of another man, Bill Lazor. Like, he is putting all of the chips in his lap, and I actually kind of respect that. He's betting on himself, and I actually really, really, really respect that. That he's going, you know what? I'm going to take either all the glory or all the pitfall because this is probably going to be, if it's a pitfall, my last year as the Chicago Bears head coach. I would rather have it be all my fault if we don't succeed offensively than put it in the hands of another human being and have to hope that he does well and then go through that scrutiny. I kind of respect that. I mean, I honestly look at Matt Nagy a lot differently right now and think, you know what? If he's gonna do that, clearly he hasn't been extended. Okay, so clearly that's just like glaringly the read between the lines of things that people aren't saying on Twitter. He hasn't received an extension. Okay, and this year he is literally playing for his job. And he's betting and he's putting all the chips in his corner. And he's saying, you know what? If my job's on the line, I want to be the one to either, you know, succeed or just fail terribly and burn. I respect that. I
Okay.
really do. I really do. And going forward for the Bears, that's great for us because guess what? If he again, which he hasn't really proven except for, 2018, that he can make good play calling in the last 2 years, he hasn't proven anything to us. We don't even know, like we said earlier, what the offense is. So for Bears fans, you should be excited about this. Nick, you should be excited about this as a guy who's really out on Matt Nagy because guess what? The odds are in your favor that he's not going to succeed and will not be the head coach of the Bears after next season. And then we go forward and we find out and, we see who are going to be the available head coaches going into the next year. Again, flip side of that, if he succeeds really well and, we go, have a phenomenal year, it's all on his shoulders. So, Nick, I want to hear, him taking all that responsibility and just saying, you know what, it's, make or break bust. And honestly, he didn't get an extension. What do you think?
So we all know that I think Matt Nagy probably has the biggest ego within the Midwest, not just Illinois, within the
In
Midwest.
our notes, you put ego, 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 ego.
One, two, three, four. Yeah, like I think I put like 12 egos down. Like this guy just thinks he thinks his crap doesn't stink. Like,
Mhm.
and sure, he's had success. NFC North Division champions. We might have won the Super Bowl that year. Offense was doing better that year. And you know what? I like that perspective that he's putting all the pressure on himself. That I understand. But I'm going to flip it really fast, London. Put that back on the last season when the Bears were what, 4-8? No, I'm sorry, 4-7. Season's on the line. He hands it over to Bill Lazor. Bill Lazor saved the season.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about it. And like I've said before in the past, I think during the Green Bay game, Nagy called plays because his ego was just like, biggest game of the year. Let's go out there and do it. And they never showed Bill Lazor at all on camera that game. Just put that in perspective. So Matt Nagy bought himself another year with Bill Lazor. Now Matt Nagy has probably been in his basement with all his different play cards, BU all over the place, drawing up new plays. But he's going to freak out and end up doing draws all over again. But going back to your point, I don't think he had a lot of trust in Mitch. I don't think Pace had a lot of trust in Mitch. That is why when Foles went in, things went wrong. Things went worse. Because when he threw him in the Atlanta game, he torched it up in the fourth quarter. It was awesome. Bears fans was like, we got the guy. And then it worked for a couple more games. And then Matt Nagy lost the locker room. What it seemed like. People were frustrated, losing games, close games. Bears lost close games at the first 3 of the losing streak. And then they started getting blown out on national television.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think that you're right. He's putting it all on himself. And as a Bears fan, kind of just thinking in the big picture, Khalil Mack's aging. Akeem Hicks is aging. Before we got rid of Kyle Fuller is aging. This defense is not going to be at the elite status that it's at, or great, not because losing Kyle Fuller, they just went back down to great. They're still a great defense, not elite like they were. But Mac's getting old. They're getting old. And sure, they got Eddie Goldman to pick up Mac, but he's 27. A couple of years, he's going to be old. And if you do a rebuild after Matt Nagy leaves, let's say Matt Nagy has a horrible year, gets fired, like you said, awesome, woohoo, we got rid of him. But now Bears fans have to deal with yet another rebuild of just no playoff wins for over a decade. It's gotten to the frustrating point where you should be, as the McCaskies, something against the cap is going out and hiring the best GM you can get, the best head coach you can get, and have them put something together in a couple years. Think ahead. Ryan Pace was an experiment, and I think it was a success. Matt Nagy was an experiment. I think it's a failure because think about it also. Kansas City won the Super Bowl the year he leaves. Patrick Mahomes wins MVP the year he leaves. All this other stuff. So that's from a frustrated Bears fan. I agree with your point, though, and that's the one thing I do respect about Matt Nagy. He's putting it all on himself, as he should, because this is his sinking ship. So, but it also should be on Pace. Pace really can't do much right now, though, because of the cap. But you raise a really good point, London. That's just an emotional, optimistic Bears fan just screaming out at me. Guarantee you when I'm editing this, I'm going to go, actually, London had some pretty good points, and I probably should have just taken a breath, but that's just the initial reaction to everything that's going on. And I hope that you can see some of that. And I know you're shaking your head, yes, but you're much more level-headed on this thing. I still think Matt Nagy should not be calling plays next year. I think it should be Bill Lazor, who has had the best years with Andy Dalton, who has had, he has worked with Nick Foles before. He helped make Trubisky, probably save Trubisky getting even a backup job. Because I don't think anyone would have signed him, to be honest. At least not for, what'd they pay him, $3-4 million? They gave him a decent chunk of change to be a backup. But, that's just my take on it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's a good take. And like I said, I knew we were going to be on opposite ends of the spectrum there, and I just wanted to bring, a different point of view that, again, I was not seeing a lot of it. I was just seeing a lot of hate on Twitter. Every single thing that came out about, man, I was just seeing a lot of hate. And so I just wanted to kind of put a different, idea out there and spin out there that, hey, it's going on his shoulders. But overall, I mean, the biggest thing, just taking off from, our press conference, today's press conference that wasn't public. Okay. Iron Curtain of Chicago all of a sudden, and putting it, putting some tidbits out there was this. Andy Dalton's going to be the starting QB. We're okay with mediocrity. And man, every single QB that we get out of free agency just happens to be the fit for the offense.
I like that. The fit for the offense. That should be on a poster with London wearing a Bears turtleneck, arm across. That's the fit for the offense. I agree. But with that, we're going to close this one out. There wasn't much more to say to it. Some comments might not even have been released because they could have been so bad. But there's obviously more going to be on Twitter. More news is going to come out. The draft is coming up, though. So London and I, this upcoming Wednesday or Friday, we'll get back to you that on Monday. But we'll be hitting on Mock Draft 2.0 with trades. So thank you for everyone watching Mock Draft 1.0. 2.0 is coming out. It's going to be very interesting. Yes, Kellen Mond is still going to be in mind, but his position in the draft has changed just sitting here right now. His draft capital has skyrocketed, and, London still hates Kyle Trask. So, and that was in the newest ESPN Mock Draft at 52 is Kyle Trask. So
I saw that, and I almost threw up.
What? And he's been working with Andy Dalton too.
Yeah, so. And that even made it worse. Honestly, that killed me even worse.
But with that, this upcoming Monday we will have our preview of Chicago baseball within its first couple days. Obviously, like London said, the Hawks, White Sox, and Cubs all lost yesterday. Not a good start for the baseball season for either one, but it is game one of 162 instead of just 60. So more to come on that. But with everything else, my name is Nick Brody, joined alongside my co-host, London Beth. Thank you very much for joining us on this Friday, and enjoy your weekend, Chicago. Have a good one.